Dignitaries on Friday paid tribute to the victims and survivors of the Christena Disaster in a special sitting of the Nevis Island Assembly on Friday to mark the 50th anniversary of arguably the greatest tragedy experienced in St. Kitts and Nevis. The session featured addresses by former Prime Ministers of St. Kitts and Nevis, former Premiers, and Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris and Premier Mark Brantley. Former Prime Minister and the nation's only living national hero, Sir Kennedy Simmons, who was the only doctor operating on Nevis at the time of the tragedy, recalled when he was first alerted of the incident back in 1970.
I decided to go to the hotel to check in and have lunch. As I drove into the yard, the manager ran out into the yard shouting, "Don't get out! Don't get out!" They just called to say that you must come to Charlestown quick because the Christena gone down and they're bringing in survivors. So I just turned around and headed for Charlestown. I eventually set up a base of operations at the hospital and requested, in fact, the police to send word around on the western, particularly on the western side of the island, at all possible points of entry, to advise persons who were bringing in survivors to bring everybody to the hospital, because some people were going down to the pier at Charlestown. I set up a triad system, though that name was not used in those days. 65 survivors were brought to the hospital that day. I examined, documented, and treated 63 of them. When the government team of Dr. Sebastian and Dr. Kelsick arrived that night, they treated the other 2 survivors.
And having made reference to the memorial which is just west of us here, a memorial which was established in 2000 to commemorate the 30th anniversary. And may I say, Mr. President, it was not intended to create any friction. It was really created to ensure that there was that visible memorial to which people can come almost as a pilgrimage, if we want to call it that, to show our respects for those persons whose lives were sacrificed for the well-being or for the good, seeking to do good for their families and for our country.
My father had requested that I return home to attend what was called then the all-day service of the Wesleyan Holiness Church, called then the Pilgrim Holiness Church, on August Monday in St. Kitts. It was that same day in the afternoon that this sad event took place.
The Nevis Island administration is an institution that must be treasured, be valued, be uplifted. The Nevis Island administration must carry out the functions that those dead people wanted to see. Remember, every time you step in Parliament, every time you step in Cabinet, every time you're going to address somebody on with a podium, remember those who died, teachers, students, civil servants, some of them only to buy a dress, to buy simple lingerie, who went to St. Kitts and never made it back. Do not underestimate, do not abandon your government that people fought so hard for.
I believe that those of you who were adults at that time, and we did hear it today, can recall exactly where you were when it happened and how you reacted. We heard this from Sir Kennedy, from Vance, from Parry, and from Denzel, all the speakers before me. No doubt, from time to time, you, the survivors and families of the victims, react to triggers which remind you of the pain and horror associated with this horrific event. But no matter how painful, it is an event which we must never forget.
On that fateful day, the men and women who sacrificed so much in the service of others indeed became heroes. I pause, Mr. President, to remember Arthur Anslin, Captain Arthur Anslin of blessed memory, and Captain Winston Skeet, both of whom gave heroic service on that fateful day.
The MV Christena was a 160-foot government-owned and operated ferryboat which worked the route between Bastyr and Charlestown. On August 1, 1970, the vessel sank on its way from St. Kitts that afternoon, killing 233 persons. 91 passengers survived. Andre Huey, SKN Newsline.